Indeed. And our first movie tonight is probably going to be in the category of probably not.
It stinks.
It stinks. Yeah. Yeah.
So Netflix cut Paramount a check to, and I think this one also had MGM involved with it for some reason.
Yeah, and not entirely sure why.
Had to be some sort of rights issue.
Yeah.
But we decided to subject ourselves to the Snake Eyes movie from a few years back, one of Hasbro's various attempts to get a toy universe going.
Yes. This was, of course, after the recent Transformers movies, particularly Rise of the Beasts, which had a post-credit scene that hinted at GI Joe.
Yeah. And also the Bumblebee movie, which had John Cena playing somebody from GI Joe, as I recall.
Probably, yeah, yeah. But yeah, so they decided to give probably, arguably the most popular character from GI Joe his own spinoff movie. That of course being Snake Eyes. Now, for those of you who probably aren't familiar with GI Joe lore, yeah, Arcos, yeah, it's not very good.
Right. So this manages to be bad on two levels.
Indeed, yes. So if you're not up on GI Joe lore, Snake Eyes as a character, he's an American, and kind of is meant to be kind of like the all-American looking guy, like blonde hair, blue eyes.
As non-Japanese looking as humanly possible.
Right, yeah. And but he's an orphan kid in Japan, and I don't know the circumstances of how he ended up that way.
I think it
But
was intentionally mysterious. At least it was in the animated movie or animated series GI Joe Renegade from about 20 years ago.
right, yeah, and the what was in the live action movie from like 2009, I think. But yeah, so he originally he's an orphan living in Japan, and then he gets taken in by a ninja clan called the Arashikage, and the leader of that group is actually called the Hard Master, which there's their character in this movie called the Hard Master, but he's not the leader. But and he Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow grew up together. They were like foster brothers, a bit like I don't know. I don't know if it's the right comparison, but sort of like Hamato Yoshi and Oroku Saki in Ninja Turtles. Kind of a similar relationship.
I'd also liken it a little bit to like Wolverine and Sabretooth in the sense of, you have like two characters who are like brothers in arms, and one is a dark reflection of the other.
Right.
Yeah. With also a little bit of Cain and Abel thrown in, because Storm Shadow was he was the native born one. He was seemingly the rightful heir, depending on the continuity. Like, it could be he was the son, or it's like he was just always second best, but like, well, I'm the Japanese guy, I should be the top student here at this ninja academy.
Yeah, yeah. And and there's an short animated movie called GI Joe Resolute, which I thought had a really good telling of their origins.
Did I say Renegade? Okay, I misread the title.
No, I think you were right.
There was Resolute or Renegade. Let's find out.
Well, there was one called Renegade that kind of had like Mike Judge like animation.
Well, and it also had, weirdly enough, Charlie Adler as a surprisingly good version of Cobra Commander, which is funny considering he's usually known for his silly cartoon voices.
Right. Yeah. But then there was another one called Resolute, and it was actually like, I think it was like short animated videos that they just condensed into one movie.
I was mistaking the word Renegade for Resolute. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
that was written by Warren Ellis of all people.
right, yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Um, and so yeah, and part of that too is that uh, Storm Shadow betrays the Hardmaster, and
Mhm.
he works with Cobra to kill the Hardmaster. But so that's kind of the and it's in that same incident where Snake Eyes loses his voice, which is very important because in this movie he talks
A lot,
a
actually.
lot. Yeah.
The- right. So it immediately fails as an adaptation of whatever version of lore you want because you don't actually end up in the same place. Like, spoiler alert, he is still totally verbal at the end of the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be slightly nice here
Okay.
because if you're trying to make a movie and this is like the introduction to a character in the series, first off, no actor is going to want to portray a mute character and it's very hard to write a central narrative where a character is mute.
That's true. Yeah.
Uh, that apparently is one of the issues that happened that came up during test screenings of the Wile E. Coyote versus Acme movie that got shelved.
Oh, yeah. Wile E. Coyote never talks. Yeah.
Right, they didn't go with like the super genius version.
Yeah.
Um, the other is like I can be sympathetic with them wanting to make these changes. It's kind of similar to how like the Mandalorian, you know, not supposed to take his helmet off, but Pedro Pascal wants his face to be seen.
Hmm.
It's like how in Spider-Man 2 and 3, they got the criticism that the audience couldn't necessarily relate to Tobey Maguire with his helmet off, or his mask off, so frequently running around with his mask off.
Yeah. And the other thing, yeah, or like with Iron Man, they had to make that whole face thing for him so that you can kind of at least get the idea that he's in that suit. Robert Downey Jr. That is.
Right.
Um,
So it's like I'm sympathetic to that problem
yeah.
for this as a movie. The problem is that this is just kind of dull, and it has very much feels like it's superhero origin story syndrome.
Yeah. Very much so. It felt a lot. It felt like a X Men Origins Wolverine. Kind of had that similar vibe to it.
With the added disadvantage that this is having to be the ground floor for a new GI Joe universe. Because if this had been successful, and this was, I believe it was delayed by COVID
Yeah.
and just hurt by that whole general period in movie releases. But I don't see this doing well even under the best of circumstances.
Yeah, I don't either. Um, um, but um, but yeah, so I guess we could probably get into the
Do
get
we
into the.
have to? We're going to talk about in general terms why it fails.
Oh yeah, well yeah,
All right. So Henry Golding is our titular Snake Eyes. And so much was made at the time about it being a race swap. I looked into it. He is half Indonesian and half British, which is why he has the name Henry Golding.
Hmm.
And I'll be honest that from the perspective of like, while many Americans might not be able to tell the difference from a Japanese perspective, he would stand out and he does look different than the rest of the cast. So it's like,
Yeah.
it's not a it's not like an immediate deal killer in my opinion.
No, that's the least of this movie's problems.
Right, right. Because the setup is so stupid because it manages to make our main character look bad in every way possible.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's a total character assassination of Snake Eyes. It's
Right,
just
when like Snake Eyes is supposed to be a strong silent type who, he's the one you bring in to get the job done.
right,
And
and
they have what in theory is a good setup at the start, though. Basically, he's out in the woods with his dad, uh, who talks about being in a safe house, and young innocent Snake Eyes doesn't know what what a safe house is. Like, oh, is there a safe in the house? No, why'd you ask? Oh, I heard you on the phone. You said you were at a safe house. Never you mind, son.
Yeah.
And then it just like smash cuts to him being woken up in the middle of the night by his dad. Did that feel like abrupt to you too?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Felt like there was like might have been a filmed scene missing.
Probably. Yeah. Like the bad guys coming up onto the house. Yeah.
Like there was like a little bit of that, but it's still like it was just very quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so his dad gets killed by some mysterious person who basically, okay, roll your dice and we'll see if you live. Oh, you rolled snake eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. Spoiler. The dice are loaded.
I know, right? I definitely didn't see that one coming.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Now, like my writer brain kept going, okay, so like in a competently done movie, the guy who killed his father would be the head of like he would either be an evil ninja or he would be the lead Cobra villain for the movie.
Yeah,
He is
and
not.
he's not. He's not. Yeah. So then we jump cut 20 years later, where Snake Eyes he's fighting in a bunch of underground fight clubs. Then he gets recruited by this Yakuza boss to come work for him. And then a month later, then he's working down at the port in LA, and he meets another guy named Tommy, and uh, we soon discover that Tommy is actually undercover, working for the because he's actually with the Arashikage, and the Yakuza boss is his cousin. And so,
And like his disgraced cousin.
yeah, his disgraced cousin, yeah. And so they they have this little thing where the Yakuza boss tries to have Snake Eyes kill Tommy, but he doesn't do it, and then they have this whole thing where this whole big escape thing, and next thing then Snake Eyes gets hurt, and then next we're on a private jet, and they're flying back to Japan, and Tommy, who oh, I guess I'm going to say it's Storm Shadow.
Yeah, well, we don't care about spoilers. We're just here to kind of explain where this movie went awry.
Yes, yeah. And hey, creators out, like, good to see you.
Hey, hey.
Um, and yeah, so he it's so Storm Shadow takes him back because he wants Snake Eyes to join the Arashikage, and of course he tells him in order to join he has to go through these 3 trials, and the last trial is, of course, if he fails it, he dies. And of course, the one chick that works for him, Akiko, uh, doesn't trust Snake Eyes at all, and with good reason, because he's actually working for the Yakuza guy.
Yep, like it was all an elaborate ruse to get him into the Arashikage.
Yeah.
Arashikage, the ninja people.
Yes. Yeah. um, yeah.
And the weird thing is that they felt the need to have a MacGuffin in there. By the way, it's not that here's where Snake Eyes' character is so confused. So it's like if he had been a legitimately bad person who had been like who had his eyes opened by the good ninja's philosophy, like seeing that there was another way, that I feel like that would be one thing. And I think they tried for that, but they also didn't want him to ever seem like too bad of a guy. So, oh well, why was or they wanted like to have some sort of justification. So it was like, oh, why is he working for the bad guys? Oh well, the bad guys say that if he betrays the ninjas, then they'll give over his father's killer to him to have his revenge on.
Right. Yeah. And but then as it starts progressing, and you pointed this out when we were watching it, that he Snake Eyes quickly learns that the Yakuza guy is actually working with Cobra,
Mhm.
and he's like, and then he finds out, the Snake Eyes finds out about Cobra, and then and he's like, "Oh, I didn't sign up for this. Oh, you're okay working with a Yakuza guy, you're an arms dealer and all this other stuff, but terrorists, no, no, no."
That's a step too far.
That's a bridge too far there.
Yeah, killing people for profit, that's totally acceptable. For political reasons, shame on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where it's the character assassination, is that there it would be so easy to restructure this. Like you just commit to him early on, not being a good person, and just have his eyes open. You could even have it be like the love of a good woman. That's a favorite trope, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, and also, he doesn't even kill the bad guy, and it's like there's not he doesn't even kill the guy who killed his father. We don't know what happens to that guy. He just lets him go because I guess he's
Yeah.
learned some sort of lesson about forgiveness, question mark, even though there really wasn't a sign that he had.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and then and of course you've got two
Oh,
other
actually, one other thought.
yeah.
The other problem is that what kind of pansy ass ninja philosophy would lead you to the conclusion that you shouldn't kill your enemies who are dangerous to people?
Yeah.
That's like if he was joining, I don't know, if he was like just immediately joining GI Joe, then you could argue, okay, like you don't kill prisoners who are under your power,
Yeah.
because yeah, there's rules of warfare to respect. But ninjas, like or if it was like a samurai thing, like okay, well, there's some sort of honor code here. But ninjas are just like they're assassins and spies and stuff. Like there's no rule in there for honor.
No, no. Yeah. Well, and that's the other part of with Snake Eyes Origins is that he after what happened to him in Japan, he actually does go back to America and he joins the army.
Hmm.
So it's like, yeah, so like I don't know why they, at least have him be like maybe, like some kind of special forces guy. I don't know why they wouldn't do that, but yeah.
Yeah. So into this mix, there are a couple more elements added. We have the Baroness and Scarlet are introduced to
Yeah.
represent Cobra and GI Joe respectively, as this plot brings them in when it kind of overcomplicates things.
Yeah.
But at the
Uh,
same time, I understand why you would do it. Because if this is supposed to be the launching pad for your GI Joe verse, then you kind of can't leave it until the last minute, even though Iron Man didn't exactly make Shield a central component until Iron Man 2.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone wants to rush their Marvel universe, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, I can kind of understand the inclusion of Scarlet because she's like kind of fits in with his backstory. Um, he actually trains her to be in the art of ninjutsu.
Didn't they kind of have like some sort of low key romantic tension?
Yes, they did.
Kind of
Yeah.
like a forlorn Wolverine and Jean Grey type thing.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah. And then Duke was basically the Cyclops of that trio, of that triangle.
Yeah. The other element they add, which is like the dumb comic book movie element, is the uh, the Ninja Clan is hiding a secret artifact that is held behind a DNA encoded door that is like it's a crystal that can generate heat energy if you think at it hard.
Yeah.
And it's like this is like the clan's sacred mission to keep people from getting this MacGuffin. There's a number of problems with this from my perspective. First off, I would say that most of the movie doesn't have like the tone of a universe that has a lot of supernatural elements. There's really only two things that are outside the ordinary. One of the tests involves giant anacondas in Japan. Yes, giant anacondas in Japan. They're specifically called anacondas. Um, and like we're talking like anacondas that could have eaten a small dinosaur, or even actually no, a large dinosaur even.
Yeah, those are big snakes.
Yep. Uh, And then the other thing is this jewel, which if it was like, I don't know, medieval Japan, Tokugawa Japan, that would have been like a super weapon of the highest order.
Mm-hmm.
But in theory, if you're a GI Joe or Cobra and you have access to modern arms at all, you can more or less match it. The only reason that the bad guys do so well with it is that they're attacking a bunch of ninjas who don't seem to believe in guns.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, attacking from long range like smart people.
Yes.
Like if you insist on using old school weapons, somebody with a bow and arrow could have dealt with that problem in 3 minutes flat.
Yeah.
And so now part of this betrayal, yeah, Snake Eyes does betray Storm Shadow, is that he gets some of Storm Shadow's blood on a handkerchief to beat the DNA lock, gets the bad guys, the dingus, spares his father's killer, and then gets cold feet and goes to try to help fight it. And the thing is that part of Storm Shadow's promise is that he would never actually use the device himself. And in the course of things, he gets the hold of the jewel and tries to use it to defend the family. Now, we have left out the character of I believe it's his grandmother.
Yes.
Who is the head of the clan, because she is largely irrelevant.
Yeah.
In fact, I would go so far as to say that I'm gonna use a word I don't like using. I think that her role in things is a woke element, because it just struck me right now, if traditionally he is learning ninjutsu from the hard master, and the hard master is now just a guy in the group.
Yeah.
The inclusion of this character is kind of unnecessary, and they kept having these weird girl boss moments that were very reminiscent of Avengers Endgame with Scarlet, the Scarlet Baroness, and her in like frequently moving together as a unit, as if to emphasize that, yeah, these kick-ass powerful women are doing things for themselves.
Yeah, and never mind the fact that one of them's a bad guy.
Yes. Because basically the bad guy betrays Cobra, but and so Storm Shadow is basically told, yeah, you're never going to be the head of this family, but you can keep working for us. And he is understandably pissed because he just had his birthright that he's worked so hard to maintain taken away because a guy betrayed him and seems to be having no consequences.
Yeah.
Like, he's been forgiven.
Yeah. Yes. Storm Shadow's feelings and actions are totally justified.
Especially because there's no evidence that like if it was like, oh, it was like, oh, the jewel is too powerful. Okay, like, so what? If you picked up an anti-tank rocket launcher, would you also go, oh, you've been corrupted by the power of the anti-tank rocket launcher? about as dangerous as the jewel.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Like, it's not like they said it's like the power is corrupted. If it was like, oh, this is an evil thing that will slowly corrupt and kill you.
Yeah.
Like, then it would be like, make sense. Like, just using it the one time in defensively would be like a reason to ban him.
Yeah.
And so it's like I end the movie thinking that our main character, who doesn't appear in the iconic costume until the very last frame, is kind of a inconsistent jerk.
Yeah.
And his future rival is actually completely justified.
Yes. Yeah. As Tony Stark would say, not a great plan.
Yeah. So if we look at it from the perspective of, did this adapt the canon well? No, absolutely not.
No.
Is even a good coherent story? No, not at all. Because the acting ranges from okay to sorry, Samara Weaving as Scarlet, very wooden. Kind of came across as as Kroger Julia Sweeney.
Oh, Sydney
Sydney
Sweeney.
Sweeney. I always get mixed up the name of the woman from Saturday Night Live. But
Oh yeah, yeah,
anyway, yeah, it was Kroger brand Sydney Sweeney.
yeah. Which is weird because I've seen her in other things, and she was really good in other movies. I don't know why she acted like that. I guess she was just trying to be tough, macho army woman. And
Just
just
trying so hard to be stoic that she just had no personality whatsoever.
right, yeah,
Ursula Corbero as Baroness was more fun.
yeah,
I think Henry Golding was just. I think he could have done a good Snake Eyes if it had been like this version of Snake Eyes if it had been written better. But
yeah,
the only really positive thing I can say about this movie is that it has the action scenes have sort of a ninja infused Michael Bay over the top quality.
yeah, yeah,
Like there's some cool bits. There's some nice visuals,
yeah. Some of the CGI looked a little rough, but
like the snakes.
yeah, the snakes, yeah, yeah. But yeah, this movie's a hard pass for me. I mean,
Yeah.
as much as I like GI Joe, because I mean I grew up with the cartoon show,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, like the live action movies that they've tried to make have been very subpar in my opinion.
Yeah, I liked the second one with The Rock, and because I think they made the smart choice of trimming down the cast a bit.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think the other thing is that, and you asked, why didn't they just have Snake Eyes be in the military?
yeah,
It occurs to me that for a movie franchise with this budget and attempting to go up against Marvel and DC,
yeah,
they probably didn't want to make them American military explicitly. Like I bet if this had continued, they would have had GI Joe as they said in the UK version of the theme song, the international hero.
yeah.
Might have honestly been why they started off with Snake Eyes in Japan, just so they could punt on having to figure out how much U.S. military to inject into it.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah, well, all I can say is, for uh, I wonder. I'm sure the people at Paramount were when they saw this movie, they were probably thinking this.
Morons! I have morons on my payroll!
It's sad how often that clip is applicable.
Yeah.